If you're a Black mother watching this, I know you're scared, and I intimately understand your fear. That's why in this module, we're really going to explore ways for you to build more safety into what is statistically an unsafe experience for you and your baby. As we move through this module, feel free to take breaks whenever you need to. You don't need to take all the information in at once, because not only is it a lot of information, but a lot of the information is dealing with systemic racism and other topics that could be deeply activating. So go at your own pace, and hopefully by the end of this module, you'll feel like you have the tools you need to feel safer and more confident about moving through your pregnancy and birth. If you're a Black pregnant mother watching this, I already know that you're tired. I already know that you're exhausted purely just by being in your body, let alone being in your body and growing a baby. Which is why, before I go into the steps that you can take to protect yourself and your baby during your pregnancy and your birth, I want to make sure that you know that in the guide for this module in this class, there are anti-racist pregnancy, birth, and postpartum care preferences that you can print out and give to your care provider. Those preferences were created by me and Loom advisor Dr. Erica Cahill to help do some of the work so all of the work wouldn't be on you when having these conversations. So that would really be step one, getting familiar with those preferences and sending them to your care provider ahead of your appointment in order to get them familiarized with what you specifically and uniquely are going to need to feel safe throughout your pregnancy and birth experience. Another thing I want to highlight is that the statistics around the maternal mortality outcomes for Black women have really focused more so on the idea of death and childbirth. But actually, most of the deaths that are happening to new Black mothers are happening within 10 to 426 days after the birth. So they're happening in the postpartum experience, which is why supporting your postpartum experience and planning your postpartum experience while you're pregnant is actually going to be critical to keeping you safe. So remember that as we go through the steps that you can take to support your pregnancy and birth experience. Postpartum planning matters too. And we go into more detail about planning for a supportive postpartum experience in our postpartum class. The first step is acknowledging race and racism in the room. You're already going to do that by giving your care provider the anti-racist preferences. It's also their responsibility to see you as a Black woman and understand that as a Black woman, you're going to have unique needs and also unique risk factors as a result of systemic racism and as a result of the stress that comes from living in a system designed for racism to thrive. The next step is creating a care plan that anticipates how racism might impact your pregnancy. Some of the ways that your pregnancy could be impacted as a result of racism would be things like high blood pressure, chronic anxiety or depression, and other invisible factors that might be impacting your overall well-being. That's why it's really important to bring in as much support as you feel is adequate during your pregnancy. That could look like bringing people to your prenatal appointments, whether they're in person or virtual. You also could use the sample language in the preferences to share with your care provider your concerns about the statistics and how those statistics could impact your outcomes and ask them how they can work together with you to keep you safe. The next step would be to identify how racism could impact your labor. And I think one of the key factors here would be pain management. Due to medical fictions that began back in slavery, there is a widely accepted, whether that acceptance is conscious or unconscious, idea that Black bodies are less susceptible to pain. As a result of that, Black women tend to be under-medicated for their pain. And that could be a major issue when it comes to how you want to navigate your birth experience, especially if you're planning to have a medicated birth. So sharing that concern with your care provider would be probably the most important component to making sure that one of the legacies of racism doesn't impact your labor negatively. And it's called out very clearly in the anti-racist care preferences that your provider will have a copy of. Lastly, you also want to identify how racism could impact your postpartum experience. As I shared a few moments ago, most of the deaths are happening 10 to 426 days after a baby is born. When it comes to how racism could impact your postpartum experience, one of the key things to talk to your care provider about will be monitoring your blood pressure. High blood pressure, heart attacks, and eclampsia are some of the deadly outcomes that could be experienced by Black women after having their baby. Talking to your care provider around how you can deal and get ahead of any of those situations happening is really important. One of the ways that you could avoid having any issues with high blood pressure is being able to monitor your blood pressure yourself. And that should be something that your doctor can help you do by prescribing a blood pressure cuff for you at home or letting you know the best one to buy. Another way that racism might impact your labor or birth is that Black women can be coerced or pressured into having a cesarean birth when it might not be medically indicated or necessary. So if a cesarean birth is recommended to you, you definitely want to get clarity from your care provider to understand why that's being recommended. It's a great opportunity to practice informed consent should you want to move forward with that cesarean birth. And it's also a great opportunity to practice integrative negotiation, which I talk about in more detail in the Negotiate and Advocate module in this class, in order to make sure that if your birth is going to be a cesarean birth, that you are actually on board with that decision. Now, I know none of this information is easy or comfortable to take in, just like so little of our existence has been. But do the best that you can. Make sure to take care of yourself as you take these steps to support your pregnancy and your birth and protect your baby. We shouldn't have to do all of this work and also still make space for self-care. But self-care truly is a prescription for us. If we take care of ourselves, it literally puts extra minutes, days, and years on our lives. So as we have to fight for what we need, we also need to fight to take care of ourselves. So be gentle, take it moment by moment, and hopefully the work that I've done helps you do less work and helps keep you safe. Let's circle up. When it comes to navigating your pregnancy and birth experience and transition into your postpartum life, work the anti-racist preferences. The conversations that you're going to have when using these preferences aren't going to be easy. And I understand that. Even when I created those along with Dr. Cahill, we knew that it was going to be a challenging experience. But it's an important part of keeping you safe. And so the more that you can read the preferences, get more comfortable with them, hopefully that will help make the conversations feel a little bit easier. Also, print out the preferences and give them to your care provider directly. Or if you're on email with your care provider, you can send them that way. That'll give your care provider the chance to review them before they meet with you if you email the preferences ahead of time, or they can review them with you in person. The idea is that the preferences help you do the work and take the work off of your plate, even if it's just a little bit. The next thing is stacking support. Whether you're having a telemedicine appointment with your care provider or you're having an in-person appointment, make sure that you have whoever you find supportive or whoever is going to support you in this experience comes with you. Because if you feel stressed, oftentimes you're going to forget things that might be said in your appointments. And so you want to make sure that you have someone else with you who's able to really focus in and make sure no details are missed, or help remind you to say the things that you were hoping to say before you even got to the appointment. It's also absolutely fine to switch your care provider whenever you feel like you need to do that, because you need to find a care provider who makes you feel comfortable, who you can build safety with, because when you live in a Black body, safety is not something that's built in. It has to come with time. And you also want to make sure that they really understand the goals that you have around your birth experience and are able to stay in deep communication with you throughout all of the different stages of your pregnancy and during your birth and postpartum. You're really looking for that continuity of care. So switching your care provider until you find that, even if it takes 2, maybe even 3 providers, is definitely going to be worth it. And lastly, self-care is a prescription. For Black women, because of the constant stress that we're under and systemic racism's long-term effects on our existence, taking care of ourselves puts minutes, hours, and days back on to our lives. So when you feel like you can't find the energy to take care of yourself, I really want you to think of taking care of yourself as you extending your own life. And if you can put it in that framework, maybe it'll make it easier for you to have that meal, take a bath, go for a walk, listen to some music, vagal tone, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. Hopefully, knowing that it's helping you for the long term gives you the motivation you need to move forward with it.